All right, heading into week 9 of the fantasy football season, I'm going to give you my starts and sits at the wide receiver position. I'm going to try and avoid some obvious names and maybe give you guys that are on the edge of in matchups that I really like this week. Do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe. Why don't you comment down below your toughest start-sit decision heading into week 9. A lot of teams are on buys. We actually have 5 teams who are, I think 6 actually, who are on a bye week this week. The Browns, Cowboys, Broncos, Giants, Steelers, and 49ers. That is a lot of fantasy players. So these start-sit videos I hope are going to be helpful to give you confidence either way on a start or a sit. All right, my first start of the week. I know he's coming back from an injury, but I anticipate him playing. Now, if he doesn't play, then different story. But Keenan Allen at the Atlanta Falcons is my first start of the week. I know some people might be worried about the hamstring, but if he plays, I assume he's going to be full go. Last week, or the last time they played versus the Seattle Seahawks, which was before their bye week, Keenan did not play in the second half. We were told that there were no setbacks, and with Mike Williams out for quite a while with that ankle injury, Keenan Allen is going to be that consistent over-the-field target for Justin Herbert once again in an offense that really needs Keenan's presence. You can see Justin Herbert struggling without Keenan Allen, so he's going to be an important part to this offense. He was heavily targeted week 1. I mean, I think he had 4 catches for 66 yards before he went out, and he only played 22 snaps of 67. So Keenan is going to be a reliable option here heading into week 9 versus the Falcons. It's a great matchup. The Falcons give up the most points to fantasy wide receivers. If you want another desperation start, how about Josh Palmer in this same matchup? Because I think he's going to be very necessary to this team. I like both of them. Start them both with confidence. Palmer's more of a flex. Keenan's more of a wide receiver too. My second start of the week is Romeo Doubs, who plays the Detroit Lions in Detroit. It's a great matchup. The Lions currently give up the 5th most points to the position, and I'm not sure if Allen Lazard is going to play or not. He's still dealing with that shoulder injury. Seems like he won't play, but if he does, you can add Allen Lazard to this list as well. I like both Allen Lazard and Romeo Doubs. Christian Watson left the game again with an injury last week. Doubs seems to be the only reliable target. I know he dropped some pretty bad passes in week 7 versus Washington, but Rodgers is forced to use Doubs and Lazard. Last week versus Buffalo, which was a terrible matchup for Romeo Doubs, he had 4 receptions on 7 targets for 62 yards and a really nice touchdown. So you can continually see Romeo Doubs' game improve. He's gaining trust, and it's almost out of a necessity. Like, he has to be really good for this offense to be successful. So start Romeo Doubs or Allen Lazard. Both are great options versus Detroit. My third start of the week, we're going to Minnesota, and specifically Adam Thielen, who faces the Washington Commanders. Washington currently gives up the 10th most points to fantasy wide receivers, and honestly, I think they'll be way worse towards the end of the year. This secondary is very poor. Now, they found a little bit of form, but still, this is not a very good defense, and specifically in their secondary, it's very shocking. That's how teams beat them most weeks. Now, Adam Thielen himself, I know people were worried about him after his first 2 weeks. He didn't score over 10 points. However, since those first 2 weeks, week 3 onwards, he has scored over 12 points in every game except for week 5. And since week 1, he has had 7 targets or more in every single matchup. So he is heavily involved. Hasn't had a game this year where he's played under 87% of the snaps. He's heavily involved in a pass-heavy offense versus Washington. I like this matchup. I think he gets into the end zone, and we'll see if he tries to do the gritty with Justin Jefferson. But I like Adam Thielen this week as a flex option. All right, my fourth start of the week is Tyler Boyd versus the Carolina Panthers. It's a pretty good matchup. The Panthers give up the 11th most points to fantasy wide receivers. Last week was really rough for this Bengals offense, but still somehow Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins were pretty successful. Tyler Boyd only had 5 targets, but he put up 3 catches for 38 yards and found his way into the end zone. Without Jamar Chase, both T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are must starts on a weekly basis. Now, will Carolina be able to put the pressure on that Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns defensive line was able to? Potentially. I mean, Brian Burns is very good, but you hope that Zach Taylor and this offensive line is going to be able to figure out a way to game plan around that and keep Joe Burrow on his feet. Either way, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, both very good starts. It's a good matchup, and Boyd is probably going to have a lot of touchdowns in this span until Jamar Chase is back and healthy. So Start Tyler Boyd as a flex option this week. And I think he's going to have a better game than he even had last week versus the Cleveland Browns. My fifth start of the week is Chris Olave versus the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore currently gives up the 4th most points to fantasy wide receivers. They're getting torched in the air, and most teams on a week-to-week basis are taking advantage of their shaky secondary, who has a lot of very good veterans, but they're not really able to stay fully healthy. They don't look like a cohesive group. Chris Olave last week had one of his down weeks, if you will, and he still scored over 10 points. He had 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 52 yards, but he only played 58% of the snaps. And the reason he only played 58% of the snaps was completely, in my opinion, because of the game script. The Raiders were not able to score a single point. The Saints beat them 24-0. And I started Derek Carr, so I remember this off the top of my head. He lost me my matchup. Point being is, versus Baltimore, the Ravens are going to be able to put up points. They're not going to be as bad as Derek Carr and this offense. They're going to put up points. Chris Olave will be more necessary to the game script. But think about the game versus Arizona, the game versus Carolina, versus Tampa Bay. In all those matchups, Olave had 13 or more targets. So I fully anticipate anywhere from 7 to 10 targets for Olave this week versus Baltimore. A very bad secondary, a very, very good route runner. Chris Olave is. He might already be a top 12 route runner in the NFL. So you can start him with confidence in a matchup that should require more points for both sides to win. And my 6th start of the week, I wanted to give you guys some real desperation options, okay? Players who are probably not in most people's lineups, but I like the matchup, and I'm going with Darnell Mooney versus the Miami Dolphins. Again, a desperation start. Mooney had a very rough start to the season. In the first 3 weeks, he had under 7 total fantasy points combined. But since week 4, he's had 3 games over 12 points. He's being targeted more and more and more in that offense as they let Justin Fields start to expand his game. And now you're playing Miami, which is a very good matchup. They give up the 8th most points to the position. So Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields, last week he was able to put up 12 points versus a very good offense. I feel like the Dolphins are definitely going to be able to score on this defense, meaning the game script is going to be in Darnell Mooney's favor. So he's always someone who can kind of catch a ball for about 50 yards on any week. I like the connection. I like the player. And again, desperation start, but desperate times with 6 teams on bye call for desperate scenarios. So give me Darnell Mooney as my desperation start of the week. All right, I'm going to quickly give you 3 sits of the week to close the video. These are players that I'm probably doing my best to avoid. I know there's a lot of bye weeks this week, but I think there are better matchups. Firstly, any Patriots wide receiver not named Jacoby Myers at Indianapolis. Indy currently gives up the 2nd fewest points to the position. I'm not even sure if Jacoby's going to have a good game, but the target share should be there for Jacoby Myers. He's been very good this year, kind of like what we hoped Darnell Mooney was going to be, oddly enough. The only target on his team, really consistent. He's been great. But outside of that, Tyquan Thornton, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, none of these guys are really good options this week versus a very good secondary. So I'm going to sit all those players. My 2nd sit of the week is any Lions wide receiver not named AMON-RA St. Brown. So your Josh Reynolds, your DJ Shark, I'm not sure if he's going to play or not, but any wide receiver, Khalif Raymond, any of these guys who are not named AMON-RA St. Brown, they should not be in your starting lineup. They go up against Green Bay, who gives up the 9th fewest points to fantasy wide receivers. I know that is a tough matchup for St. Brown, but you start St. Brown if you have him. And my 3rd sit is, again, another group, any Colts wide receiver not named Michael Pittman Jr. They play the Patriots. The Patriots give up the 10th fewest points to the position. Michael Pittman's been good. 9 targets last week. He still had over 12 points, 7 receptions for 53 yards. You hope that as Sam Ehlinger continues to get more and more comfortable in the NFL, that Michael Pittman will continue to be his favorite target. Last week, I told people Paris Campbell was a trap. This week, versus Washington last week, he only had 2 catches for 43 yards, under 10 fantasy points. I feel like we're going to continually see Alec Pierce's role grow, but still, outside of Pittman, I don't want to start Paris Campbell or Alec Pierce. Sam Ehlinger is just not someone that I think can support more than one fantasy wide receiver, and I think Pittman's going to be that player for them. So those are my starts and my sits of the week. Why don't you like the video, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments below. Again, what's your toughest matchup, your toughest start-sit decision this week? Good luck heading into week 9, almost playoffs. push that home stretch. Don't give up. You never know what can happen. And good luck.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.